Rural Americans deserve access to the best of what our nation has to offer, especially health care. Across every state and every community, America's rural hospitals are the first line of defense, protecting our families, neighbors, and loved ones. No matter where you live, hospital care doesn't clock out. They're there 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. Each year, America's over 5,000 hospitals care for millions of patients, providing 24/7 emergency care, delivering babies, cancer treatments, and other life-saving care that patients rely on. Behind every one of those patients are doctors, nurses, and caregivers working tirelessly to keep people healthy and safe. Hospitals are our community's lifelines. They employ our neighbors and keep our families healthy. But now, some in Congress are threatening access to care. Tell Congress, protect patient care to keep America strong. Don't cut rural health care.
Listen, all you New Yorkers. Taxi. Okay, we're looking around.
This is the 77 WABC minicast.
We're back, folks. This is the More Money Show on a very, very busy Saturday. By the way, the weather has turned really nice where I am. I'm in the Washington, D.C. area. I know most of you are in the New York City area where it's a beautiful day, too. So I hope you get out and enjoy the fresh air and sunshine and get some exercise. Boy, it's been a brutal winter so far, and we're probably not done with it yet. Almost certainly we're not, but it's nice to get a little respite here and get some nice sunny weather and some warmer temperatures. By the way, this was the New York Times, of all places, just reported that from late January through late February was the coldest stretch in New York City. I think it was like the third coldest stretch in something like 100 years. Don't quote me exactly, but it was one of the coldest winters in the history of recording temperatures in New York City. And this comes at a time when the left is screaming about global warming. Now, you can make whatever you want out of that. I don't think it proves anything. But, you know, I guarantee you, if we have a hot summer, they say, oh, you see, we have global warming. So have you noticed this is why they use the term climate change? Because if it gets colder, that's climate change. If it gets warmer, that's climate change. If you have floods, that's climate change. If you have drought, that's climate change. If whatever it is, if you have hail, it's climate change. So, by the way, we spent $16 trillion on climate change and we did not save one life with that money. So let's stop spending $16 trillion on those kinds of things and improve our schools and improve our society in so many ways. You know, we have a new report coming out that shows if we could just have spent 1/10 of that money on finding a cure for cancer, we'd have one today, and we would have saved millions of lives. Okay. Do we have John Fund with us, Mr. Producer? John, thank you for joining. John Fund. Hi, John. So, John Fund, you know him from National Review. You know him from Wall Street Journal. You know him from frequently on Newsmax, on Fox News, and he also works with me as one of the editors of the hotline, the Unleash Prosperity hotline. And if you are not getting this, folks, go to unleashprosperity.com and sign up, and it is absolutely free, and it's something I think you'll really enjoy getting. 5 mornings a week. We'll email it right to you. You can read it in 5 minutes, and John Fund is our political editor of that newsletter. So, John, thanks for joining. Something you and I have talked about in recent weeks on this show is what the hell is going on with the SAFE Act. The SAFE Act is basically a bill that would require basically a form of physical ID when you vote. I think you're the one who's been citing a lot of these statistics about how popular that is with voters. It seems like it's popular with everybody in America except the Democrats in Congress.
Well, the Washington Post did a survey a couple years ago. They broke it down into 50 Democratic categories. And the analysts said 39 of the 50 categories had a majority in favor of voter ID at the polls. The 50th had only a plurality, less than 50%, but still more than the opponents. And that category was called very, very liberal. And the analyst said, substitute MSNBC, MS Now viewers, and that describes the only people who were opposed to photo ID.
So what's going on with this, John? I mean, it's, as you said, it's a layup. I mean, almost every sane person believes that if you, just like, I mean, everything we do, you have to show an ID. In fact, I think sometimes you have to show an ID too often, but certainly to vote, to make sure that you're a citizen and to make sure that you're eligible to vote and you're voting at the right place at the right time, et cetera, et cetera. So what is it? I mean, Donald Trump brought this up and he said, well, maybe they want him to cheat, but it's hard to, I don't like to, ascribe motives to people, but I can't think of any other reason why the Democrats are so opposed to making sure that when John Smith shows up to vote, it's really John Smith and he's really eligible to vote.
Right. And we also have problems with mail-in voting because mail-in voting doesn't require you to physically show up.
That's right.
And prove you are who you say you are. And there's separate security provisions that are needed and implemented for that.
Right.
But look, let's just say that the Democratic Party is opposed to firm, clear, unimpeachable rules. They like something that's a system that's loosey-goosey, has play in the joints. Because, remember, most districts, there's not very much voter fraud because they're not competitive. But if you get a really close race, and, believe me, our House and Senate races are getting closer and closer and could determine control of that body. If you get a really close race and the rules are vague and mushy, then at the last minute you can throw some people in, just like the former Democratic appointee to the New York Board of Elections a few years ago admitted that there were buses in New York City that would take people, homeless people, pay them cigarettes and bus them from polling place to polling place and have them vote because there's no voter ID.
God. Yeah. So, what's the status of this now, John?
It has passed the House. It's headed to the Senate. Now, the Senate rules say that you have to have 60 votes to bring something to the floor, and it's not going to get that. So the Republicans are debating whether or not to demand a talking filibuster, where the opponents, the Democrats, have to sit and stand and talk until they are exhausted. Now, I think personally,
so that's like out of the movie Mr. Smith Goes to Washington, right?
Exactly. And as senators became older and frailer, they decided to drop that and simply allow them to make their objection. After all, believe me, the majority of the Senate is almost 65 years old, so you can tell that they care about their bladder and standing up too long. But the bottom line is, I think we're not going to pass the SAFE Act this year, but we are raising the profile of the issue. We are forcing the Democrats and the opponents to make their ridiculous arguments against it. And I think we're setting it up for success in the future. At the same time, it also expands and improves the efforts in the states to pass voter ID and citizenship laws in the state level. And we're making a great deal of progress. 34 states now require photo ID at the polls. The big blue states don't want to do it. In fact, California makes it illegal to ask for anyone to show ID at the polls. But I think we're making progress. The elections in 2024 were much better than the elections in 2020, and the elections in 2028 are going to be even better.
So, I want to thank you for that update on things. We've got a few more minutes with John Fund. John Fund from National Review and Wall Street Journal and so many other major media news outlets, and he's the world's expert on politics and elections. I want to switch, we've got about 3 or 4 minutes left, John, on the issue of what is going on in New York City. And we've now had, almost 2 months of Mayor Mamdani. And I think most people would all agree that we're not too impressed so far, that he's done a horrible job of snow removal, of just collecting the garbage, just making the trains run on time. What is you've been in and around New York. I know you're from California, but for decades, you've been in and around New York City. How would you assess his first couple of months?
Well, confused. He's clearly a newbie on the job. He's appointed a bunch of radicals to run almost every city department. But the real defining moment that he had, I think, was this past week. President Trump stood up and State of the Union and told the Democrats, you stand up if you believe that American citizens should be treated better and have more rights than illegal aliens. And the Democrats refused to stand up. Well, what did Mamdani do that very same day? He went into a TV studio with AOC and he taped a message saying to New Yorkers, there's a February 27th deadline for the new city free child care programs, and you have to show up by and register by February 27th, and no immigration status is involved. You can show up and get it. So this is, and by the way, the same day he went and advocated for property.
So in other words, hold on. So in other words, you can be in the country illegally and get free child care in New York?
Yes.
Jeez. Who can afford to pay for that?
That's why he's asking for a tax on the rich, which of course is soon going to be the middle class. And he's already said that if the New York State Legislature won't pass a tax on the rich, he will raise everyone's property taxes. That's primarily paid by the middle class. So on the one hand, he wants to give free child care to illegal aliens. On the other hand, he wants to raise taxes on the middle class in New York City. That's his platform.
So if you were, I've asked my listeners this question. I asked them last week. I'm going to ask you this question, John. Let's say if Mayor Mandani called you up, said, John Fund, you know a lot about politics, you know all about government. And he said, just give me one piece of advice about how I can, because he stumbled out of the starting gate, no question about it. What would you advise him to do? And by the way, we know that his social philosophy, his political philosophy is socialist. He believes in big government, but also New York City wants to make sure they're getting their services. So what advice would you give this guy?
There are mayors all over the country that are doing a much better job than the city of New York. I would have him convene the mayors of San Antonio and Miami, even Philadelphia, Detroit. Detroit has had a very successful mayor the last 12 years. I would have convened Democratic mayors who've decided that we are liberals, but we want to deliver services at a reasonable cost for people. And if you do that, you can't go wrong politically.
Yeah, no, I think that's a very commonsensical thing. My advice, if he asked me my advice, it'll never happen. I'd say, look, you give a good speech, you got a nice smile, you're charismatic. You go out and give the speeches and talk about how wonderful, the warm embrace of socialism, but put somebody in charge who knows how things work. Cause I don't think he's ever run anything other than a campaign before in his life.
No, the city usually hires a city manager who knows the nuts and bolts. And most cities' managers are more powerful than the mayors. Houston, Texas is run by a mayor and a city manager. They do a very good job, and Houston is one of the best governed cities in the country.
But doesn't New York City have a city manager?
It has a whole bunch of deputy mayors who are political appointees. They don't have independent authority. They answer to the mayor. And if his word is law, the city manager has a lot of independent authority in these other cities.
One last thing, John. We really got 90 seconds left. John Fund is my guest. I think you may have sent it to me. It was kind of funny but pathetic article in the New York Times about how dare the U.S. hockey players go and visit the White House? Don't they know what a scoundrel Donald Trump is, and so on and so forth? What's that all about?
Well, sports journalism used to be some of the best writing in America. Now it's become a sewer of woke snarkiness.
It is.
And
you would have, by the way, John, you would have thought the sports departments would not have wokeism, but you're right. The wokeism is almost as bad in the sports section now as it is in the political section.
It's kind of sad because if you deviate at all from the identity politics of liberals, you are consigned to the forces of darkness. And I have to say, that's a reason why newspapers are dying, because many people in the past bought the papers for the sports, and that's why more and more people are going to independent websites, like the Barstool guy and all of that.
That's right.
On the internet.
Right. It's so true. Well, John Fund, thank you for joining. John Fund works with me at Unleash Prosperity. He is all over the news, Fox News and National Review and Wall Street Journal. Thanks so much for joining, John. And
thank you.
Folks, we will be right back. This is the More Money Show on WABC.
Every week, the Payne family cuts straight to the real financial story.
The one question, Bob, everyone's asking is, are we in an artificial intelligence bubble? You've been through boom and bust. What do you think?
No hype, no myths. just what actually matters to your money.
Does feel very similar to what we experienced in the 90s. Where are we, though? Are we in 1995, 1997, 1999?
Listen to The Pain Points of Wealth on the Red Apple Podcast Network.